Hello everyone, I'm Sylvia from Penelope Tarot. Welcome to my channel and welcome to March Madness and monthly wrap-up. By the way, you can probably tell from my voice that I'm still sick. I probably sound worse than what I am, but let's see how it goes. So March has been completely crazy. As a wrap-up, I have so many things to show you. I'll try and make it quick because otherwise we are going to stay here for hours. But let's have a look at the cards first. So we've got the Desert Illuminations Oracle, which is by Lindsay D. Williams. Now, if you watch my channel, you know that I have the Desert Illuminations Tarot. I have the first edition, and I'm very, very happy about that tarot deck. So when I heard that the author, the creator, Lindsay, was going to make an oracle as well, I really like the idea of having an oracle with the same symbols as the Desert Illumination Tarot. If you don't know the tarot deck, I highly recommend you have a look. I will make sure to put the website in the description box below. It's always about those symbols that pertain to the culture in New Mexico that I really, really love. And I feel that this oracle is really hitting the sweet spot between local folklore and the traditional keywords that we all know of, traditional oracles. It's a very beautiful oracle. I really love the colors. By the way, it's fantastic quality. It's a linen finish. The size is a bridge size, as you can see. Let me see if I've got a standard tarot size to compare it to. So I've got the Penelope Tarot, the indie edition. And as you can see, it's definitely bridge size. It doesn't really matter because obviously, it does pair a little bit better when you pair it up with bridge size decks, tarot decks as well. But it's really beautiful, and I really, really recommend it. I think there's still a few in stock. I'm not so sure, but as I said, I'll just put the website in the description box below. So this is the Desert Illuminations Oracle. The second deck that I want to show you is the Penelope Tarot by Sam West or Sam Rook. This tarot deck is the indie edition, but as I said a couple of times in my previous videos, I do believe that it's being picked up mass market by Rockpool, and it's going to be published under the name Velurio. I don't know when, there was no date for the publication. This is a very typical Sam's art style deck. She's, if you're not familiar with her work, I really recommend checking her out. She's the author of the Macabre Tarot and also the Rainbow Moon Tarot. I really love her art style. It's simple. All of her decks are kind of, maybe pish-pish. They're not fully illustrated, but they're beautiful. And I really appreciate the choice of the colors. For example, in this case, there's only 3 or 4 colors. But they really go well together. It's a very beautiful combination. And I also really enjoy the cardstock. So this is the type of cardstock that really, really fans really well. It shuffles really well. I wish all of my decks were with this cardstock. As you can tell, I'm not talking much because my voice sounds terrible to me. I hope it's not, recorded voices are even worse than what we expect them to be. So I hope it's not as gravelly as I hear it. So this is the Penelope Tarot. And I was so happy to receive this tarot deck in my collection for the month of March. This is the Tarot of the Unknown. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this is based on this incredibly popular Tarot of the Unknown deck is now available in pocket form. So indeed, this is the pocket size. So it says it's combining the Rider-Waite Tarot with Over the Garden Wall. I don't know if you're familiar with Over the Garden Wall, but I highly recommend watching it, if you're not. It is such a beautiful story. So there's a bit of an introduction about the artist. There's, as you can see, a bit of a wrap-up on the meanings of the cards, including the minors. which is always very nice. If you are familiar with Over the Garden Wall, you will recognize the characters in the minor suits, for example, but also in the majors. It is so freaking cute. I know that it was on Kickstarter. I think it was 2019. In any case, a couple of years ago. And I couldn't get it. I missed out. It was probably, I don't know, I probably missed out. After that, I have been looking for it, and it became out of print, which broke my heart. And then I think I bought this from one of the Facebook groups I'm in. But I know that this edition is actually quite recent. And it's so adorable. It's really beautiful. It's adorable. You will notice that in many cases, the majors have a different name. So, for example, the Hermit is called the Woodsman. Well, the Chariot is still the Chariot. The Lover is still the Lovers. But Adelaide, the Hierophant. And Emperor Endicott. So these are names, obviously, of the characters. Empress Marguerite. The characters of the Over the Garden Wall, the Greg. This is so cute. So I really like the idea that they've taken such a beloved show, and they made a tarot deck out of it. And but in my case, I wouldn't count this as a fandom deck. I don't know why, but for some reason it feels like it's been. There is so much attention to details, you know, starting from the back of the cards. And nowadays, unfortunately, the term fandom deck has got a bit of a negative connotation because of many decks that have been produced out there for the mere scope of making money. And I feel like this is an actual product of love, because it does show that there's a lot of attention and care about, you know, making a deck will not disappoint every one of us that has been loving Over the Garden Wall so much. This is the pocket edition of the Tarot of the Unknown. Another deck that I was really looking forward to receiving was the Wisdom of Hafiz. So this is an oracle deck, and I think you all know the creators, Angie Solins. Angie has made another couple of decks, and one of them is definitely on my wish list. So I don't remember the name of the other decks. This is my very first Angie Solins deck, but I really love the artwork so much, and I really love the keywords so much that I think that if the others are similar, I might definitely have a look at them. So this deck is amazing. The only thing that I'm not too happy about is the fact that it's really glossy and it really catches the light. What I'm happy about though is, well, pretty much everything else: the art style, the colors, the choices for the keywords. In some cases it's an actual sentence, like here we can see embrace your magnificence, offer up gratitude, unleash your passion, receive your blessings. It's a really beautiful deck. It's seriously, the combination of colors in some cards is absolutely spectacular. And I really do appreciate that there's so much details in the cards. The artwork is really full, it's really rich, but it doesn't feel like it's overwhelming. It feels like it's decorative, which makes sense, because if you're familiar with this type of culture, you know, the Middle Eastern type of culture. I spent a month in Turkey last year. I was lucky enough to, you know, pretty much tour around the whole country, and it's just absolutely wonderful. It's such a beautiful place. And I really love the decorative style of the mosques, for example. There is so much detail, so much attention, and you can tell the passion of the artists creating this artwork. I still have to get to know this deck, because I think I got it just last weekend, and I've been a bit overwhelmed with all the decks this month. It's also because I had a lot of decks in February as well for my birthday. And because of that, I have to study those decks, and then I feel like I can finally move on to these ones for March. So I feel like my list is really getting longer of, you know, the things that I need to study. But I'm really happy about having a look at these decks and, you know, already thinking about what tarot to pair them with, how to use them, etc. So this is the Wisdom of Hafiz Oracle deck. The Reclaim Oracle was also delivered in the month of March. I've talked about this deck before. This deck, I actually resisted getting it for quite some time because I did have the Poesis Oracle. And I feel that, I don't know, for some reason I thought that this deck would have been, it would not have brought anything new to my practice because I had the Poesis. But then by getting to know the Poesis a bit better, and by having the opportunity, thanks for a friend of mine that lent me this Oracle deck, having the opportunity to have a look at how it works or how I work with it, it just made me understand that whereas the Poesis Oracle is very, very good when it comes to doing some type of shadow work, refer to, let's call them the demons of the mind, the Reclaim Oracle is actually fantastic whenever you need to do some work on your body, on your concept of your body, on your view, your feelings about your body, how you look, how it feels, the disconnect that sometimes it may arise from having a different idea of how you should look like or how you want to look like and how you actually look like. This deck is very powerful. It's not pulling any punches. It's actually quite confrontational at times. But I do feel like if you are in that space, you do need to have a bit of a confrontational kind of work when you need to resolve or heal that kind of disconnect that can be created sometimes. It's very simple, as you can tell. The artwork is very simple. It's just two colors, black and this kind of rose. But it's a very effective one because, you know, it really gives you the opportunity to focus on the keywords rather than the artwork, even though I really do appreciate the artwork as well. So this is the Reclaim Oracle, published by Little Darkness. And after I got the Reclaim Oracle, I thought I reached out for someone who was selling the Dark Days Tarot, also on Facebook. And I reached out and I actually got it at the end because I feel that this tarot deck pairs really well with the Reclaim Oracle. It's kind of a very similar art style. I used to have this deck, and then I gave it to someone for a trade. But I always thought that I wanted it back because I remember looking at it with such fondness. It's such a beautiful deck. The artwork is just fantastic. I really like the fact that it's black and white, and it's got this kind of contrast with the fact that some cards have a black background with, as you can see, white figures. But in some cases you also have cards with white backgrounds and black figures. And I really like that. It's it makes it for, it's a monochromatic kind of deck, but it doesn't feel that way because of the richness of details. The line work is spectacular, and the artist is really a master in what they're doing. I mean, look at these cards. They're amazing. Again, apologies if you hear noises in the background. There's a lot of birds today. I don't know what's going on. It's a sunny day. We had a couple of days of rain. And I think that nature is liking the fact that today is sunny. So they're all coming out and proclaiming their happiness to the world. The only thing, and if you do have any kind of suggestion, please let me know in the comments below. I find it really, really difficult to shuffle this deck because it's perfectly square. So what happens is that I didn't even try to riffle shuffle, but when I overhand shuffle, it tends to just go everywhere. Of course it doesn't now because of Murphy's Law, because if I'm showing something on camera, it doesn't always go the way I want it to go. And of course now it shuffles perfectly. Anyway, you probably know what I mean. Sometimes square cards, at least in my case, they just go everywhere and then I have to pick them up. And because they're perfectly square, they end up, you know, being upside down or on the side, etc. I hope it makes sense. But in any case, if you know of any trick in which I can actually shuffle this deck in such a way that it stays upright, then I'll be happy to hear it. So this is the Dark Days Tarot. Another oracle that I received last week. It seems like I have a lot of oracle this month. This is the African Gods Oracle. This is fairly new. It's been published by Rockpool. It's by Diego de Ossosi and illustrated by Breno Loeser. This is something that I really wanted for a long time. I have been working with Orishas for quite a while now. So the first experience that I had related to working with the Santero and so looking at Orishas and Yorubas was back in 2005. I was going through a lot because I just had lost my mom. And I was in China and visiting a friend of mine. And I got mugged and it was quite scary. It was quite threatening because I got mugged at knife point. So it wasn't the best experience. And I felt like, you know, that there were so many things in my life that felt that they were going in a very wrong way, in a very wrong direction. And I needed to feel like I could get back some of the control. And so this friend of mine who's Argentinian, but she's actually spent a lot of time in Cuba. She had a friend and this friend was from Cuba and it was a Santero. And so I met with this Santero and so we did a lot of studies together. He explained to me the religion of Santeria, and he explained to me how to best approach working with the Orishas. And I'm really, really grateful for that because it was just a couple of encounters and obviously that wasn't enough. But it did give me a passion for studying this religion. And I feel like there's a few tarot that covers this. There is a tarot of the Orishas. There is the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot, for example, that works with the Orishas as well. And as a matter of fact, I do work with the African Gods Oracle and the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot together. And I feel like it's a good combination. However, I feel that so far there's no, there has still to be a deep study, let's say, on the divination properties or the healing properties of working with the Orishas. And so I'm still very interested by this subject. And I was very grateful of the opportunity to buy this oracle because unfortunately, as many other decks from this month, as I said before, I didn't have time to get into them because I had so many decks in February that I'm still churning through them. But this is something that I will definitely look into perhaps next month. And, you know, April or May, we'll see if I have time. But the artwork is fantastic. I really appreciate that finally Rockpool has, you know, changed their game when it comes to cardstock. This is a matte paper kind of feel cardstock, but it's very sturdy, very resistant. I really, really like it. And I think that it's actually perfect for an oracle deck. So this is the African Gods Oracle. Another oracle, this is definitely the month of oracles. So this is the Journey of a Lonely Soul. This is published by Los Carabeo. I am not too happy about the fact that Los Carabeo publishes this oracle with 32 cards lately. I mean, and mind you, it might have been like this for a while now. I don't necessarily know because I don't have that many oracles by Los Carabeo. This is quite dark. I hope that it comes out well in camera. This oracle deck is fantastic. Apart from the fact that it pairs really well with the Nicoletta Cecoli Tarot, because the figures have a lot of echoes and resonances with the characters of the tarot. It's not the same author, by the way. This is by Charles Harrington and Anna Majiboroda. It's such a beautiful, such a deliciously dark deck. It's amazing. I love the art style. I love the characters. I love the expressions. I love the combination of the elements and the symbols in the cards. But what I really do appreciate is the keywords. And in many cases, they are not, so they're not the kind of keywords that are straightforward in their meaning. So you kind of have to go and have a look at the guidebook, which is very good. It is just floating in the storm. Look at this card. It's absolutely amazing. This deck, let me tell you, I will be very looking forward to using it with darker decks. Like, for example, the Murder of Crows come to mind, because this deck, I think that the art style will combine really well. It's a deck that I'm really looking forward to use for shadow work. As you can imagine, I think a deck like that, you know, it does, it yields really well for this type of work. And the Chamber of Apathy. I know that it may sound very negative in a way. What I can tell you is that it's actually not negative. The keywords are very strong. However, when you do read the guidebook, you find that there's actually always a kind of healing process going on. And if you do work with this deck, and I have a couple of times already because I was very curious, I found that at the end, I felt really positive. I felt like I had been going through something, and then I felt like I was actually being healed by it. Hope it makes sense. So I really enjoyed this deck, and I really look forward to work with it. It's the Journey of a Lonely Soul Oracle cards. And another oracle. So this is the Crystal Forest, an intuitive card deck. I have wanted this deck for a while. I think the first edition was out of print for some time, and then the creator put a post on a Facebook group I'm part of, saying that she was going to reprint, and then I jumped on it because I really wanted it. So this is very special. So if you're not familiar with this deck, it's each and every card, by the way, it's a very thick deck. I think it's about 80 cards, but I could be wrong. But each and every card has the name of a crystal. And the colors on the card, and also the texture and the line work, reproduce that specific crystal. So if you're familiar with labradorite, for example, you will recognize the colors. Labradorite is one of my favorite crystals. It's absolutely beautiful. And so obviously there's sceneries of a forest, because that's the name of the oracle. But as you can tell, these kind of lines reproduce the veins on the stones itself. So labradorite has a keyword as transmutation. And this to me was the perfect opportunity to start learning something about crystals. Because I'm afraid to admit that aside from the 3 or 4 that everyone knows, I'm actually not that well versed in crystal therapy. I came really late to join the party. I do like crystals very much, but I don't know much about them, which is a pity, because I think that it's something that, you know, whenever we can reach our culture, it's always something that can be conducive of an additional tool of intuition. So why not? Plus, the artwork is absolutely superb. I personally really love these type of trees. I love forests. And when I saw it, I really thought, you know, this is the deck for me, because it's going to help me understand the keywords related to each crystal. And it's going to help me identify the colors of the crystals. And I felt for, you know, I really wanted to buy a crystal for each and every card, but I looked at the prices and it's going to be quite expensive. So maybe little by little I'll do a collection. But this is absolutely something I'm very excited about. So this is the Crystal Forest Oracle. And another oracle, but don't worry, the next is going to be a tarot deck. So this is the Magical Botanical Oracle published by Los Carabeo. This is quite famous because I've seen it in many YouTube channels. A lot of people has shown walkthroughs of this deck. The artwork is spectacular. I'm gonna tell you already, the only reason why I waited for so long to get it is because there are no keywords. But let me show you. So the production value is fantastic because it's one, I think I only paid $30 for it, $30 Australian, so about 20, say 22 maybe US, which is a really good price. So what I really appreciate about this deck and finally convinced me to actually get it is the guidebook. As you can see, it's a chunky one and it's absolutely fantastic. As you can see, you've got the number, you got the name of the plant in English, then you got the Latin name, the planets associated to the plant, Venus, Saturn and Mars with their symbols, and the element with their symbol. The artwork, as I said, is absolutely spectacular. It reminds me a lot of old, you know, those old anatomical drawings, medical, anatomical, something like that, scientific, really beautiful ones. It's actually designed in such a way that it mimics that, because it mimics, you know, the yellowing paper of those drawings. Information that you can find afterwards, for example, after the basic one on the first page, it actually goes on sometimes for 2-3 pages, 2 pages at least. And you got the magical meaning, you got the plant, spirit, medicine, you've got the divination meaning and the reverse divination meaning, which is fantastic because it means that you can actually use it as with reversals if you read with reversals. Now, in my case, I rarely read with reversals on tarot decks because I really believe that technically when you use a spread, you already had some positions that require you to read the reverse meaning of the card, even though you will read it, you will just pull them upright. But when, for example, it's a simple 3 cards pull, then in that case, I would definitely read reversals. I know, obviously, there's at least 4 or 5 different ways to read reversals, and I think I might actually do a video on that because I've heard a lot of people not necessarily being comfortable with reading reversals and simply choosing for the negative aspects of the card, which is not necessarily, it's one of the ways to read reversal, but it's not necessarily the only one. And to be honest with you, it's not even the most popular one, but we'll get to that. If I get to film that video, I'll talk about this. So as you can see, the artwork is just spectacular. I really, really like this deck. I posted it on Instagram and someone actually recommended to pair it with the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot, which I haven't done yet, but I think it's an excellent idea because it does give you that kind of feel for end of a siècle kind of art style. It's just really, really beautiful. There's so many details. It's very rich. The artwork, the line work is fantastic. I really like the fact that, like the Dark Days Tarot, for example, you have cards that have you know, like a light background and cards that have a darker background. It's gorgeous. One other tarot deck that I want to pair it with is the Ophidia Rosa, because I think that it would pair really well. Unfortunately, I don't have that deck, but I want to get it somehow. It's in the list. Everything is in the list. So I'm really looking forward to study this deck. And as a matter of fact, this is the Magical Botanical Oracle Guidebook is one of my study books for the month of April. So this is the Magical Botanical Oracle. And finally, we have a tarot deck. So I finally got my hands on the dark side of tarot. This deck has a bit of a story because I ordered it from a book depository, but it got lost. And then they refunded me, and then for a while I didn't know whether I wanted to get it still or not. Absolutely adore Corradora. Is my favorite illustrator, graphic illustrator. If you watch my channel, you know that I really adore Dylan Dog, which is a horror comic book. Unfortunately, it's only been written in Italian. So if you don't speak Italian, well, you kind of need to, because otherwise you won't be able to appreciate it. And many issues of Dylan Dog have been illustrated by Corradora, who's also the illustrator of the tarot, The Murder of Crows, which I really love. So, as you can see, let me see if I can zoom in a bit. So the art style is very, very similar to his typical art style, although this tarot deck is actually very interesting because it's called the Dark Side of Tarot for a reason. The intention of the author was to recreate the traditional RWS in black and white and shades of grey, with less symbols, but still the key symbols are still there, in such a way that it becomes easier somehow for the reader to immediately focus on the symbols of the card and read it the same way they will read the RWS, but focusing on the difference between the dark side and the light side. So in this way, we can probably think of this deck as a really good deck for shadow work. However, this is what it says in the guidebook, and this is the premises. These are the premises for the concept behind this deck. I haven't actually read with it, so I cannot vouch for it. Personally, I do feel that there's a very strong, darker kind of side to this tarot. And but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is conducive to really good shadow work. I think it's a misconception that a dark deck is very good for shadow work. It might be in some cases, especially because some dark decks have confrontational cards. Does it make sense? Therefore, confrontational cards can be good in triggering some reactions in ourselves, and by triggering those reactions, they bring them back to the surface. And that's the essence of doing shadow work, is to look into the parts that are hidden from the light and that we keep in the darkness because we do not want to acknowledge them. So a confrontational card could eventually do that. They could bring them back to the surface. And then shadow work should be always completed with light work, in which you actually evaluate these things that have been released from their darkness, and you assess them, and you decide whether you want to keep them and nourish them because it's something that you want to cultivate within you, or if there's something that you actually want to let go, then light work will help you release them. So I don't know whether this deck will be good for shadow work. It might be, it might not be. I haven't worked with it yet, so I'll make sure to let you know, in future videos. But this deck is absolutely beautiful. I really love the art style because it's by Corradora. It's one of my favorite, as I said. So this is the Dark Side of Tarot. So next we're going to talk about video games. I'm a gamer, not a pro gamer, obviously, but I've always been playing. I think the first time that I played was 9 years old, 8 years old. I don't even remember. And I didn't have a computer. I had to go to a friend of mine's, and she had this computer, really old one. And we took turn in playing, and I hated that because everyone wanted to stay there. But, you know, whenever we died, whenever we failed, then it was obviously the other person's turn. And that made me, ironically, that made me a better player because I really wanted to keep on playing. Then I eventually got mine. I now use a console, so I have an Xbox, but I'm thinking about buying maybe a secondhand PlayStation as well, because there are a few games that you can only find on a PlayStation, like you can only play on a PlayStation. But this one I wanted to talk about because it's actually an older kind of game, 2018. So, you know, not a recent one. And I did play back in 2018, but I actually played again recently. So for the month of March, I spent many hours playing with this game, and I absolutely love it. And I loved it as much as I used to love it back in 2018. If you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend having a look. It's based on a dystopian kind of society where people have to take a joy pill that makes them forget about their past. And basically the concept is that if you don't know your past, if you don't have memories, you only live in the moment, and the moment can be as beautiful and as joyful as you want it to be. However, there is a strong distortion to it, because you see in the game, all these people that are addicted to these kind of pills, and they're basically miserable. So at first, it may seem like they only accept really good things, like everything has to be positive, everything has to be beautiful. But when you dig deeper into the characters, especially when there's characters that actually rebel and they stop taking their joy pill, then they start remembering their past and they start being miserable because they remember what actually happened. I don't know if I sold it to you. If you're not familiar with it, I do recommend having a look, because it's actually really, really beautiful. You play as 3 different characters. It's a first person, and it's not a shooter. It's you do have a lot of looting. It's almost, I would say it's 90% an open world, in the sense that you can explore a lot, but it's not a modern, let's say, open world. But I absolutely loved it. I really loved it. Another game that I played in March, and I'm still playing now, is Arise, A Simple Tale. That was recommended by Marine from The Ways of Your Soul. So thank you so much, Marine, because I absolutely love that game. I started playing. I'm not done yet, so I'll let you know when I'm done. It is so beautiful. It's so very touching. It's so very moving. Again, another one that I highly recommend. And another one that I'm playing right now is Little Nightmares. And I know that these are all older games. I like to play them because maybe I didn't know about them when they were released. And there are so many games. I mean, if you're a gamer, you would know there's hundreds and hundreds new ones every month. It's really hard to keep track. But yes, I really enjoy these 3 this month. So when it comes to books, I actually had a look at this book. It's very, very special. It talks about the native plants of the region of Sydney, which is where I live. And it's a very interesting book. And the reason why I started studying this book is because on my wish list for April is an oracle deck that is exclusively on native plants of Australia. And it's going to be very, very interesting. I haven't purchased the oracle deck yet, but I definitely will in the month of April, as I said. This book is really interesting. I love these books because it's like 90% photographs, which I really, really like. And the reason why I appreciate that is because obviously it makes it so much easier to recognize the plants when you see them, because you've seen photos of them. Nowadays, there's a lot of apps. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Plant identifying apps. You just take a photo of the plant or the flower or the tree, and it scans the photo and it tells you the possible answers. It's an open source kind of app. So my husband is an horticulturalist, and he actually contributes to these apps quite a fair bit with his knowledge. But I really, really like, the information that you can find. Grevillea is absolutely one very, very popular plant that we have in this region. So it gives you all this kind of information. If you're into plants, you will know how much you can get into these kind of books, these guides, these manuals. They're really fascinating. Another book that I got into it studying this month, the month of March, was The Dark Folklore, Mark Norman and Tracy Norman. So this book basically talks a lot about the supernatural, and it is my kind of jam. Everything that relates to supernatural. If you're not familiar with the TV show, absolutely have a look, because it's absolutely fantastic. 15 seasons, and I mean 15 seasons. It's a commitment. And so this book is very interesting because if you have watched the TV show, you will find there's a lot of references that you will recognize. If you're not familiar with the TV show, then, you know, you can still have a look at this book because it's very, very interesting. So I really love learning about these things. And this book is actually very interesting because it does have a bit of a scientific explanation for some of the phenomena. And it's not to say that it's renegating or denying the supernatural side of the phenomena, but it gives you the alternative so that you at least can make a choice for yourself, and you can decide whether you want to believe one thing or the other, or you may believe in both of them. It doesn't matter, but at least you know that you have different possibilities. So this is the Dark Folklore book. And I've also been digging into Irish fairy tales and folk tales. So this book is a really chunky one, as you can see. I had to zoom out because it was too big. It's so interesting. I absolutely love legends and myths, you know, and fairy tales and folk tales. And I'm really interested in Ireland, because I've been there before, but I want to go back visiting. And so whenever I plan to go visit a place, I really love getting in touch with everything related to the place itself. Witches and fairy doctor as well, there you go. It reads like short stories. There's a lot of dialogue as well. So it's not so much of, it is actual tales, not so much of an explanation of the tales, but it's superb. I really loved it. I haven't finished it yet because it's a big book, but it's one of my favorite companions before going to bed. I always read 1 or 2 or 3 of the tales. It's really, really entertaining. And last but not least, this month I actually reread The Sandman, so by Neil Gaiman. This is a fully recolored edition. I remember reading Sandman so many years ago, I don't even want to know. I adore The Sandman. I really, really adore it. This recolored, but I read it in black and white, and so when I saw that there was this edition, a recolored one, I just wanted to have a look, and I'm really happy that I did because it's absolutely fantastic. If you're not familiar with it, it's very interesting. It's based a lot on the supernatural, so you can see a recurring theme in my readings. But it's fantastic. It's absolutely superb. I know that there's a TV show, and I actually started watching it. I think it's on Prime, but I'm not entirely sure. And then I stopped for some reason because I don't know, there's so many TV shows that we're watching lately. It's actually quite difficult to keep track. But in any case, I really, really like everything Neil Gaiman does. I read it because it's absolutely fantastic. So this was it for books. And last but not least, this month I actually switched pen. I started using the Round the World in 80 Days pen, which is a homage to Jules Verne. Obviously based on his novel. This fountain pen is one of my favorite, although it is slightly too big for my hand and rather heavy, but it's okay. I don't mind. Once it's uncapped, it's actually kind of fine. It's really beautiful. I don't know if you're into fountain pens. If you're not, you know, just you can skip ahead. But if you are, this is a fabulous fountain pen. Fountain pens are kind of my guilty pleasure. I really, really love them. I love using it with my favorite colored inks. So I usually only use Robert Oster inks or Mont Blanc inks for Mont Blanc pens, because of, you know, otherwise it voids the warranty, apart from the fact that this is outside of warranty anyway. This month I actually used the Petrol Blue ink by Mont Blanc, and it's a really beautiful box. I really like this kind of bottle. And this is the swatch. As you can see from one pass, this part here is a teal kind of green that becomes progressively darker. It's an absolute pleasure to use. It's a really beautiful color. So that was it for this month. Lots and lots of things to talk about. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end of the video. I apologize for my voice. I sound terrible. I am not actually that sick, but generally speaking, my voice is the last thing that recovers. So hopefully I'll start feeling better. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. More to come. Have a great day.